Hey everyone, this is Ben with RegisteredNurseRN.com, and in this video I'm going to talk about some salary information. I'll tell you the average income in the United States. I'm also going to tell you the median household income, and I'm going to give you a few considerations before you ever change states or move or thinking about changing professions or something like that just based on salary alone. So let's get started. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about averages, but before I do, I want to tell you a quote that I love by a man named Zig Ziglar. He's passed away now, but he was a motivational speaker. And he said that money won't make you happy, but everybody wants to find out for themselves. And that is so true because we all kind of have this feeling that if we just had X amount of money, it would make us happier. But the truth of the matter is there's a lot of people who are absolutely poor in the world and they're happy. There's a lot of people very, very wealthy and yet they're miserable. And I just say that because I put out a lot of these healthcare salary videos, and I don't ever want to give the impression that you should just choose a profession based on salary alone. I mostly just put these out to give you an idea of the job overview and what you can expect to make if you go into that profession. Because everybody wants to earn a good living, and so hopefully that'll help you kind of decide if you're on the fence between a couple of professions and so forth. But a far better indicator of what will make you happy is to find a career that you're passionate about, something that you have an interest in, or something that's just a really good fit for your personality, because that is probably going to bring a lot more career satisfaction than just the number alone of salary. So let's get started talking about the average of what people make in the United States and so forth. When I say average, when I talk about the salaries in all these videos, you have to keep in mind that the average is just when you take everybody's salary from one profession or whatever, you add it all together and then you divide by the number of individuals that you use to get those salary numbers. So let's say, for example, you want to gauge a profession, like we'll say it's nursing or something like that, and you get three individuals. One makes 20,000, another makes 50,000, another makes 80,000. Well, to average that, you add those three numbers together and divide by 3, and it gives you 50,000. That's the average. Now, it's real easy to get confused about that because some people might make 80,000. Maybe they work in a top paying industry. Maybe they're at the end of their career and they're earning at the top of their game. Or maybe they live in a state that's densely populated and a big city, and so they just pay well in that area. Well, it's real easy to look at that and say, well, wait a second, I don't know about 20,000 or 50,000. That doesn't sound right to me. I make 80,000. That's what this profession should be. Well, no, the average is still 50,000. Then on the flip side, it's easy to look if maybe you say make $20,000. It's easy to look at these averages and kind of get discouraged, really, and you'll think, man, I don't make that much money. I must be a loser. No, 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 no. You're not a loser at all because you might be entry level, or maybe you live in a state with a really low cost of living or something like that. You can actually be doing better at 20,000 than someone making 50,000, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But first of all, how much money does the average individual make in the United States? Well, the census.gov website doesn't put out an average per se, but they do put out a per capita income. Now, a per capita income is when you take the total income of a population, say the United States, and then you divide by the number of individuals in that population. And I believe they don't take anyone younger than 15 years old when they compile that data. So it's the total income divided by all the individuals in the population 15 and older. And when you do that, you get an average per person of $30,518. That's the per capita income. So that gives you an idea of what individuals in the United States roughly make. Now let's talk about median household income. And this is all as of 2014, by the way. Now the median household income in the United States, $53,657. Now when I say median household, what I'm talking about there is the total household income. That means if a husband's working, a wife's working, maybe even a child's working, whoever is in that household, the average house, when you look at a house and you say how much money is that whole house bringing in, that's the median right there, 53,657. And I just wanted to throw those numbers out there to give some of you a little bit of perspective, because I know that salary numbers can vary widely depending on your experience, your industry, your profession, your state, and all that. Now, let's talk about the cost of living, because this really throws people off. And it can get you if you're not careful, especially if you're thinking maybe of moving states because you see that another state pays more. You got to do your homework because you can get tripped up here. I just want to use this example. Okay, let's say, for example, you have an individual living in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I love Myrtle Beach. My wife and I go there for vacation every few years, and it's a wonderful place, but I just picked it randomly. But let's say you have an individual making $50,000. Then you have an individual in Honolulu, Hawaii, making $80,000 a year. Now, the average person would probably look at that, and let's say you're thinking about moving. It's real easy to think, wow, $50,000 in Myrtle Beach, I could move to Hawaii, it's beautiful there as well. I could make $80,000 a year. That's a no-brainer, right? Wrong. See, this is where you're going to get tripped up. The person in Myrtle Beach is actually better financially than the person in Honolulu, Hawaii at those salary figures. Why? It all has to do with the cost of living. In fact, I went to a nifty little calculator on CNN.com, and their little money section, they have a cost of living calculator where you can enter your state, and they have some of the more popular cities, and you can compare that with another area. If you want to make the equivalent of $50,000 in Honolulu, Hawaii, you have to earn $92,713. That's how much you actually have to earn. So someone making $80,000, you're about $12,000 in the hole compared to if you just stayed in Myrtle Beach. Now, why is that? It all has to do with the cost of living. See, groceries in Hawaii are 48% more than in Myrtle Beach. Housing, 275% more. Utilities, 80%. Transportation, 31% more. And healthcare is 15% more. So whenever you think about moving states, and you know, I give those salary statistics, and I usually give the top three and the top three and the bottom three highest and lowest paying states. You don't want to necessarily rush out and go move just based on salary alone. Now, it can pay to move sometimes, and that's absolutely true, but it doesn't always pay to move. And I'll give you a few things you want to think about if you ever decide to move just based on salary. First of all, you want to think of state taxes, because state taxes are a tricky thing. There are, I think, 9 states here that have no direct income tax on wages. Now, a couple of those will tax things like capital gains, but no wage tax in these states. Alaska, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, New Hampshire, Wyoming, Washington, Nevada, and South Dakota. If you live in one of these states, you don't have to pay any kind of income tax to the state like you do on the federal level. So let's say, for example, Myrtle Beach does have a state tax. Let's say you make $100,000 in Myrtle Beach. Well, right off the bat, I think it's around 7% or so. That's going to take you down to about $93,000 right off the bat, just because you have to pay that state tax. Whereas if you made $100,000 in, say, Texas or Florida, well, you get to keep that $100,000 for the purposes of state income because you don't have to report that to the state. Next, you also want to think about groceries. You know that Hawaii example I just gave? I've heard that a gallon of milk in Hawaii costs anywhere from about $6 or $7 up to about $10 or $11. Groceries are just more expensive. Next, you have housing. There's a lot of places in the world you can find a very nice house for your family for maybe $100,000 to $150,000, and then there's other parts in the United States where a similar house may cost you as much as $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 just because real estate is so expensive. So housing, and that includes real estate, property taxes, all that. Next, utilities. Some areas will use heat pumps, for example, and they use just mostly electricity. Other areas will use gas to heat their appliances and so forth. And you always want to look, what kind of utilities am I going to require in this state or in this area? And then transportation and healthcare. Healthcare is a big one because states do have different tax schemes and different healthcare schemes, and so you always want to look at that too. So those are some things you want to think about before you ever just up and move, because we've had people tweet to us sometimes after I've done one of those salary articles, and they're like, oh wow, that was a great video, but now I think I'm going to have to move because I see that someone in another state makes a whole lot more money. And like I said, it can pay to move, but you always want to do your homework. And then finally, you always want to keep in mind also when looking at these salary figures that in the United States we have a progressive tax scheme. So what that means is the more you make, the more taxes you're going to have to pay. If you made $1 million a year, you're probably going to have to pay somewhere like $300,000 to maybe $400,000 $800,000 just in taxes. So it's automatically going to take you down to about $600,000 or $700,000, not including if your state has a tax and all that. So that can get kind of complicated, but I just wanted to throw that out to give you some things to think about. So I hope that gave you some perspective when you keep in mind and watch some of these salary videos. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.